Alright, everybody calm down, everybody relax. We're going to take a look at Blood Rites today. Listen, I'm going to take you through the deck, look at the new cards, look at the reprints, I'm going to suggest some upgrades, alright? That's better Commander, dude. That's the life you want to be living, brother. Yeah, it's a very Halloween-y time of year here. We want to get some vampires out there, they're going to suck your blood out, brother. At its core, this is a vampire deck with some really sweet Sacrifice Aristocrat energy. Surprisingly competent too. Some of the new cards are real bangers, and it's got a pretty decent core of reprints too. Why does the mana base suck? Dude, why does mana base suck, Wizard? What are you afraid of, man? Why are there so many tap lands? I'm just gonna start right there. That's the first suggestion for this deck. Take $10 and buy some duels that come in untapped. You don't need OG duels, man. You don't need to take out a mortgage on your kidney. Just pick up Caves of Koilos, Fetid Heath, and Vault of Champions. There you go. Also, right off the bat, no pun intended, get rid of Commander Sphere and stick in Felwar Stone. Drop 2 other useless cards and stick in Thought Vessel, maybe another little mana rock, and you're going to be golden on ramp. Out of the box, this thing's a little lacking in that department. Alright, that's out of the way. Let's take a look at Cavalino, because he's pretty rad, man. In Ixalan, vampires are Spanish conquistadors. Don't ask me, brother, this isn't a lore channel. Cavalino, first of the blessed, or Clavileño, I don't know, man. 1 white and a black for a legendary creature, vampire cleric. It's a 2/2. Whenever you attack, target attacking vampire that isn't a demon becomes a demon in addition to its other types. It gains when this creature dies, draw a card and create a tapped 4/3 white and black vampire demon creature token with flying. So the creature he targets with his ability has to be attacking. The text it gains when this creature dies, draw a card, blah blah blah, doesn't have an expiration date at the end of turn or at the end of combat. It just gets that forever. That's a pretty good ability. Clavileño, why you no put a garlic in the sauce? Sounds a little Italian if you ask me. This guy can also target himself if he's attacking. He ain't a demon, even though he looks like one in the art here. He can also target tokens, which is great in a tribe that seems to spit them out fairly easily. Oh wait, can't say tribe, dude. Whatever the new word is. This is a great build around Commander, and it's a very decent value. Alright, let's take a look at some of the new cards. I believe this guy is from the main set, Baral Del Presidio. Fairly standard sacrifice outlet that plays right into what we want to do, and can be activated at instant speed anytime you have priority, which is really important for your sack outlets. Man, I love the art on this thing. Selma Hayek, Cruel Sky Marcher, 3 white and a black for a legendary creature, vampire soldier. It's a 2/2 with flying. Whenever a player sacrifices a permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on Carmen, and you gain 1 life. Whenever she attacks, return up to 1 target card with mana value less than or equal to her power from the graveyard to the battlefield. This is bonkers in this deck, man, and I'm going to tell you why. You have a bunch of 2 mana sacrifice fodder creatures in this deck, including the newly reprinted and Spanish flavored Bloodghast, which is not a new card, but let's veer into this for just 1 second. Black for a creature vampire spirit. It's a 2/1, can't block, has haste as long as an opponent has 10 or less life. Landfall, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may return Bloodghast from your graveyard to the battlefield. This has been an all-star in these types of decks forever, man. It's a pretty pricey card too. And it's a non-demon vampire ripe for resurrection. If Carmen doesn't bring it back, then it brings itself back, you know what I mean? You get multiple sacrifices per turn with a free sack outlet if you sequence it right, which is kind of emblematic of what you want to be doing in this deck. Next up we have the Charismatic Conqueror, 1 and a white for a creature vampire soldier. It's a 2/2 with vigilance. Whenever an artifact or creature enters the battlefield untapped under an opponent's control, they may tap that permanent. If they don't, you create a 1/1 white vampire creature token with lifelink. Listen, man, this card's pretty good. I like it. It's going to be a vampire staple. You just mark my words. It's cheap. Did you mark them? Did you mark my words, dude? Okay, just checking. This is powerful. It's a mix of blind obedience and a fantastic token producer. Poken traducer, if you know what I'm saying. It's an interesting choice. I think if your opponents are playing out some mana dork or something that doesn't have haste, they can just tap it, alright? That's fine. But look, looks a little like William Shakespeare. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so, man. And we got the next little vampire here, the Dusk Legion Sergeant. 1 and a black for a creature vampire soldier. It's a 2/2 with menace. 1 and a black and sacrifice it. Each non-token vampire you control gains persist until end of turn. This is great in this deck. Vampires are great at putting +1/+1 counters on each other, so that would cancel out the -1/-1 anyway. 2 for a 2/2 with menace, alright. But the real pudding is that ability. Note that he doesn't get persist because he's gone as part of the resolution of the ability. This is also an instant speed. You can attack, target him with Cavalino's ability, then sacrifice if he gets blocked by 2 fatties or something. Alright, next up we have Master of the Dark Rites, which was Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez's nickname back in college. 1 black for a creature, vampire cleric, it's a 1/1. Tap, sacrifice another creature, add black, black, black. Spend this mana only to cast vampire, cleric, and or demon spells. This is a really powerful card. 1 mana with these creature types. This is great in this deck and plenty other vampire decks as well. In Edgar, this gets him out 3 turns early for the cost of that 1 vampire token you're going to make when you cast it. Alright, the last one I'm going to talk about here is the Redemption Choir. 2 white for a creature, vampire cleric, it's a 3/3 with lifelink. Also has Coven. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Interesting use of the Coven keyword, fairly easy to accomplish. This is another recursion engine that gets those little 2 mana dorks back for more sacrifice. Okay dude, on to reprints. There's a few good ones, but most exciting is Exquisite Blood. This is a combo engine, it's like a $35 card, but it doesn't really combo with too much in the Precon. But don't worry, old Nicky G has you covered with our favorite Italian meatball, Vito Thorn of the Dusk Rose. This is a vampire, he's useful, he's got spaghetti sauce all over his hands, and he's about $5. Exquisite Blood also combos with a plethora of other vampires, but Marauding Blight Priest and Cliffhaven Vampire are probably the most efficient. Just slot these guys in and you're golden, man. Another great reprint here, Elenda the Dusk Rose is back, has lifelink coincidentally, and is a great reprint. This gets big and has great sacrifice potential. Unfortunately, from what we've seen in this deck so far, there aren't too many ways to get her back after we sacrifice her. We're going to have to remedy that. And we got the Twilight Profit out there. It's another pricey little card that has had a couple rapid fire reprints. It's down to about $4 or $5 right now, probably drop further. If you haven't picked one up, it's probably going to tank after the reprint. And New Blood got a reprint, 2 black for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, tap an untapped vampire you control, gain control of target creature. Change the text of that creature by replacing all instances of one creature type with vampire. This was about $8. This is a great reprint. The fact that it makes the creature a vampire is salient in this deck, as the mind control creature is now a valid target for Cavalino's ability when it attacks. I love this card. I'm glad it's gotten a reprint. Then you got the Blade of the Blood Chief out there. You're hacking and slashing. You're slashing people right in the nuts, dude. 1 generic mana for an artifact equipment. Whenever a creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on it. If equipped creature is a vampire, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it instead. Has equipped for 1. Guess what, man? All the creatures in this deck are vampires. Just a really efficient little twin blade equipment. Twin blades were never good in any of the Dark Souls games, but guess what? It's good now. It's $3 at this point. Great in a vampire deck. Alright man, let's talk upgrades. I went ahead and did a $30 upgrade right on the Mox field. If you click on the link in the description, you're going to see it. If you go to view history, you can see all the stuff I took out and all the stuff I put in. So we're going to slot in some cards that combo with Exquisite Blood. So let's pop in a way to dig out the other piece if we're so blessed to have one in our hand. Diabolic Intent is creeping back up, but it was pretty cheap when Brothers War released, man. It's still only about $6. For a long time, this was a $30 card. Speaking of which, that's going to sacrifice a creature. You may want to include a few more ways to sacrifice creatures at instant speed. Village Rites is in there, but Plumb the Forbidden is an instant speed effect that can target as many creatures as you wish. Cast this in response to a board wipe or a bad combat and refill your hand. Hopefully make some sweet vampire demon tokens too. So listen man, you sacrifice all these vampires, you fill up your hand, and then you're sitting there and you're like, oh, what do I do, Nicky G? Well, we're packing all these sacrifice outlets. One of my favorite things to do is to sack all my creatures, get a bunch of value, get a bunch of life drain off the aristocrats out there, then cast the big old patriarch's bidding, dude. You're drawing a lot of cards in this deck too. You might be discarding some big vampires. This thing is a lot of power. It's still under $2. This is a massive swing in any type of tribal deck. This is kind of a pet card. I don't know if this card's any good, but it served me well in the past. Dark Privilege, 1 and a black for an enchantment or enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1, that's always nice. Sacrifice a creature, regenerate enchanted creature. It's a very old card that's been 31 cents since Vision's brother. This little lizards guy, he's out there drinking blood, man. Give him his chance to shine, okay? Looks a little bit like Joe Biden, if you ask me. We also got Vish Cal out there, man. He's a vampire and he rips, dude. Look at him reclining. This is a man and a lazy boy on the battlefield. You can't beat that. Now listen, we need a little more recursion in this deck, and this lady's just straight dominating the ogre back there. Sign me up for whatever he's having, dude. The Null Priest of Oblivion. This is a great sacrificial lamb. Late game can get back some of your bigger vampires that you had to sacrifice or who got murked. Now from the main set, we have the Queen's Bay Paladin. Seems like a unique guy. He's riding his faithful steed out there, right into your hearts, man. This is a great recursion for bigger threats. You also may want to include some more aristocrats. You know, you got Bran out there. He's not the best one. He only activates once per turn, but he's got this fancy hat. He's got his fancy little claws out there. He's a neat fella. He's draining life. Not bad for 2 mana. You also have the Pitiless Pontiff. This is an alternate sacrifice outlet. The Pontiff is the Pope, dude. And if you want to take the Precon in a more aristocrats-oriented direction, you got Vindictive Vampire, always a good include. Anawan. This guy hates people who aren't vampires, man. He's just a dang xenophobe. He hates anybody that ain't from his part of town, you know what I'm saying? He's a vampire. He lives in the vampire village, buddy. He's another good include for a vampire deck. No real downside for this guy. He just sits out there and accrues value. Now listen, man, once you make these upgrades, your deck's going to be running like Usain Bolt on his way to another world record, or Mr. Olympia towards just a big old pile of steroids. Take your pick, dude. It's a beefy deck with some nice tricks. Not bad at all for 40 bucks or whatever these cost in 2023. Plus you get some of these sweet tokens, man. Listen, looks a little like Kim Kardashian, I'm not gonna lie, dude. Look at this beautiful woman. Nikki G from Better Commander signing off.